Level 1, Lesson 10. In this lesson we're gonna do two things. We're gonna learn the song 99 Red Balloons, and then we're going to start building a rhythm that we're eventually going to use on Wish You Were Here. So after the first song video, the lesson will continue. 99 Red Balloons was originally released by the German artist Nena. It was originally in German and released 1983, but in 1984 they released a translated version. That is the basis for the version that you're going to play, called 99 Red Balloons. The song has a shifting tempo. It starts off quite slow and then comes a fast part, and then it slows down again. For your concern, it only has two parts. It has a riff and it has a verse. And the verse is just straight basic chords, just like we've been playing in previous lessons. But the riff, to learn the riff, we need to learn a new notation system called Tablature. It's not particularly more difficult than the charts we've been using, but don't mix them up. In Tablature we also use 6 lines representing the strings, and this time they're gonna stay horizontal. The bottom line here is actually the string 6. That's different. So that's a bit awkward because you're sort of seeing the guitar upside down. But there's a very important difference. There are no frets in Tablature. So instead of frets, we put a number on the string we're going to play, and that number indicates which fret we're going to play. So here we are putting the number 3 on the bottom line, which is string number 6, which means that we're gonna go to string 6 and then play the 3rd fret. To indicate which finger we're gonna use, we use a number underneath the lines. So finger 1 is still finger 1, like it was in the charts. So this note is correctly played like this. And in the chord chart, this note would have looked like this. So how about open strings? Well, you just write 0. So we talk about fret 0 here. That is an open string. These two notes are the two notes that are in the riff. So we're gonna start learning it now. Riff is simply once here, and then open string, and 3rd fret again, and open string. And then you're gonna mute the string. So with the picking hand, you use the technique we used in the first lesson, exercise 1, which I will call linear half strokes, which is a rotation of the wrist only on one string. Linear means that you're only playing one note at the time. So what you're going to do is like this. Then comes the muting, and you can do this in two ways. You can either use a palm mute, where you take the palm of the picking hand and just mute the string like that. Or you can use a finger mute, where you use one of the fingers, optional, up to your choice, on the fretting hand, and just mute the string like that. So the riff looks like this. Or with a palm mute. You're gonna get a practice video in 90, 140 and 190 BPM. Moving on to the verse, which is also the foundation for the theme B in the song. That's just 4 chords. That's G, A minor, C, and D, repeated over and over again. The pace is quite high though, so it's not all that simple. So you get videos in the same tempos as the riff. And that's all we need to start working on the song video. So as you play the song, it's going to start off with a verse in a slow pace, and then the pace is getting higher, and you're going to play the riff, and then comes the verse, and the riff and the verse again in the high pace, and then it slows down again. In the transitions between riff and verse, make sure that you as soon as possible start preparing for the new technique, because shifting techniques is something, a challenge in itself on the guitar, and going from the big whole stroke motion to the smaller linear half strokes requires some reconfiguring of the body. So as soon as you see that there's a shift going on, start preparing for it so you don't get surprised by it. So just try the song video, and remember, the lesson continues after it. You and I in a little toy shop, buy a bag of balloons with the money we got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software flashed a message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by. It's all over and I'm standing pretty in this dust that was a city. If I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here it is, a red balloon. I think of you and let it go. In the second part of this lesson, we're gonna start building a rhythm, as I said, and we're eventually gonna use it on Wish You Were Here. The technique you use when you play rhythms with the pick on chords is called strumming. It sounds something like that. I have developed a notation system that we're going to use, and it looks a bit cryptical, but it's not all that difficult, and it's actually quite handy once you understand it. We're not going to go through the entire system right now. We're going to just learn the techniques we need to perform the task we're going to do. But the basics is you can strike the strings with the wrist going downwards or with the wrist going upwards. And in the notation system, downward stroke is a D and the upward stroke is a U for up. Down and up. So, when the D is in uppercase, that's a whole stroke, the technique we've been using up until now, which means that we play the entire chord range and hitting each string equally hard, like that. For an E minor, that'll be through 6 string. For a D, that'll be through 4 strings, like that. So, with the pick moving downwards, that's an uppercase D. So, when I play like this, it's notated. So, that's the first technique. That's the whole stroke. When we play several times downwards, the wrist needs to move up to the beginning point through the air. That's the next technique. That's the air strokes. So, to describe this motion, we need a symbol for the upward motion towards the air. And the symbol I use is a minus sign. If the air motion would have been on the way down, that would have been a plus. We're not gonna use that in this particular rhythm. So the correct notation of this motion will be down minus, down minus, minus, minus. So you got whole strokes and you got air strokes. The next technique is the dark half stroke. And as I've said previously, a half stroke is a rotation of the wrist. And why it's called dark, to explain that, we need to dig a little bit into some terminology. And it's as simple as this. You can think a little bit about what's the difference in sound between the 6th and the 1st string. I think everybody will agree that there's a difference between them. There are, however, different words for it, and the words I'm going to use is, I say that the 6th string is darker than the 1st string. The sound is darker. The 1st string is brighter. So I'm going to talk about dark and bright. And with a dark half stroke, I mean if you take, for example, an E minor, which we're going to use in this exercise, you can hear that it has a dark sound here, and it has a bright sound here. We are eventually also going to use bright half strokes. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to just strike to bring out the dark side of the chord, like that. There's a very important difference between half strokes and whole strokes. Whole strokes are, as I have said earlier, balanced, which means you should strike the strings equally hard. A half stroke is unbalanced, so it's not all that important whether you strike all the strings equally hard. So don't start aiming with your eyes or something like that. Just listen to the chord and try to bring out the dark sound. If it's one string, two strings, three strings, that string or that, it's not that important. It's more important that it's a very, very easy motion, flowing motion. So a half stroke could sound like this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to play first a whole stroke, back with the wrist, a dark half stroke, back with the wrist, whole stroke, half stroke, whole stroke, half stroke. So we're going to use three techniques: whole stroke, air stroke, and the dark half stroke. So it's gonna look like this. There is a point that you accentuate the difference between the techniques. So there's a tendency in the start that you will start making either the whole strokes with a rotation, leading to a weak sound, or you're going to start doing the half strokes with a lot of wrist, giving you a very clumsy sound. The techniques tends to gravitate towards each other. So in the start, I think you should isolate them and do the whole stroke as a stretch and a turn, and the half stroke as a turn. So you do stretch, rotate, So that's the rhythm you're going to play, and you're going to get a video and you're going to see me play it, and you're also going to see this notation, the big D, the minus, the small d, and so on. And there's also a sign saying pattern repeat 2 times per bar, and that means that the pattern you're seeing is going to be repeated twice during a bar. You're going to get this exercise in 40 and 50 BPM, and you're just going to hold an E minor and try to make this motion. So, and that's the end of lesson 10.